It's your boy, JD the Black Pilot here with my final video in the series, part 4 of how I selected my flight school. If you haven't checked out my other 3 videos, look at the description down below and check it out. Let's go, here we go.
Okay, let's go.
My last section here, comparing and selecting. So this was the most organized portion for me, but once again, I'm spending $12,000 to $20,000 on getting my license, and I want to make sure that I'm maximizing that amount of money and not wasting it. So you can organize the data however is best for you. It can be an Excel spreadsheet. It can be just good old-fashioned paper and pen. I chose to write it on paper and pen. And so the 3 areas that I focused on. The first one is aircraft cost. I calculated the aircraft cost based on 50 hours and I calculated the cost based on 60 hours. So granted, the minimum is 40. I hope to complete it in 40. The national average is between 60 and 70. Because of the cost saving measures I'm taking, I'm hoping to be able to complete it within 50 to 60 hours. So I use those as benchmarks for my low of 50 and my high of 60. So the aircraft cost, if it's a wet rate on your price sheet, if it's a wet rate, all you need to do is calculate the rate times hours, which is your rate times 50 or 60. I did that for both of them. If it's the dry weight, you have to get a little bit more involved. So you still calculate the rate times the hours, 50 or 60, but you also need to calculate for the fuel. So the fuel cost is going to be the fuel times gallons per hour. And the Cessna 172 roughly burns between 7 to 9 gallons per hour. And right now the fuel cost in my area is $6 per gallon. So once again, for the instructor cost, I calculated at 50 hours and I calculated at 60 hours. Ish. It's a little bit more tricky, but I added a kicker on the end. So for the instructor, so you have to think about this. As your instructor, you're going to have not only for the time that you're actually flying, so for that 50 to 60 hours, you're going to have them for a period before you start flying and a period after, because you have to brief with your instructor on what you're going to do, and then you have to debrief with your instructor on what you accomplished and what you're going to do next on your next training. So your actual instructor rate, the amount of hours that you're dealing with your instructor is going to be a little bit more. So it's actually about like 1.5. So what I did was I calculated the rate of the instructor, which you can find on that sheet, times the hours times 1.5. Now, this may be a little bit high because if you think about it, on your solo flights, you're not going to have an instructor with you. So if you go, you have to have 10 hours of solo flight. So that's 10 hours you're not going to have your instructor with you. However, I decided to keep it in there because there may be times in which I might have to go and talk with my instructor a little bit longer, or instead of working with my instructor for 15 minutes before, I may have to work with them for 30 minutes before or after. So I left it in there as a little bit of buffer and wiggle room for me. So other costs include the aircraft rental insurance cost. Some of the schools, which should be listed on your rate sheet, some of the schools include aircraft rental insurance within there. Some of them require you to get your own altogether, and some of them only give you the insurance while you have an instructor with you. You have to get your own insurance when you're flying solo. And some of the schools offer that insurance, some of the schools don't offer that insurance. So I didn't include that in my other video as far as questions to ask, but you go back and ask them when you're including that. So there's 2 other things that I forgot to mention when you're comparing and selecting. And the first one is distance. So you also need to compare the distance between the different schools that you're going to or that you're planning on attending, or that are just your choices. You want to think about the travel time it's going to take to get to the school, the travel time it's going to take to get back from the school. You also want to think about the cost of gas to get to that flight school as well. The other thing you want to think about is comparing the equipment. That is specifically like how many aircraft or airplanes each school has. If one school only has 2 airplanes and one's always in maintenance, but they have 20 students, it's going to be 20 students fighting for one airplane. So pick a school that has enough airplanes for you, so that way you know you're not going to be competing as well. The last cost I'll talk about are cost of equipment and medical. So click the like and subscribe and the bell notification down below, so you'll be notified when I release my video about cost saving tips prior to flight school, and another video on my cost saving tips for equipment. So you're going to need to get equipment to get ready to fly, and you're also going to need to get a medical prior to going on a solo. So those are my videos. I hope that you found this helpful. Once again, click the like, subscribe, and the bell notification. Thank you for supporting. I look forward to seeing you soon. All right, take care.